The bell on the oven timer went off. Emma was sitting at the dinner table, drawing pictures with her crayons. I heard the sound of the dishwasher in the background, something which I had grown accustomed to over the years. "All right, bedtime, you two," I say, folding up the document on our money issues. "Just 5 more minutes? I'm almost finished with my drawing." "We'll play with the unicorn tomorrow, sweetie," I say, picking up their toys as Emily takes Emma through our nightly rituals. She's still in her work clothes, a white blouse and a tight skirt that looks like something from a fashion magazine. "All right, little one," she says, giving Emma a peck on the forehead. "Time for a bath." I watched them go upstairs, my wife holding Lucas's hand as he took the steps one at a time. It still brought tears to my eyes to see him walking, even after all these years. It was a miracle he was even alive, let alone able to walk. We had been married for 8 years now, and I still couldn't believe how lucky I was to have her. Emily went upstairs to read a bedtime story to Lucas, and I sat down on the couch to look at some financial statements I needed to go over before a meeting at work the following day. I heard the neighbors next door letting their dog out in the backyard, and the man was talking to his wife about something. I recognized his voice as Greg Anderson, who lived next door with his wife and 2 kids. Emily's phone was sitting on the coffee table and it suddenly buzzed. A text message. I heard her voice in my head saying, "Don't look at my phone, it's private." But still, I couldn't help but glance at the screen. I noticed the name on it was Aaron, and I thought that was a bit strange. Aaron was my best friend. It buzzed again and I saw a preview of the message. Aaron, 9:47 p.m. I can't stop thinking about last. I picked up Emily's phone and my heart began to race. I knew I shouldn't look at her texts, but I had a terrible feeling in my gut telling me I had to see what this was. I knew her passcode, since I had used her phone to look something up for her before. It was her mother's birthday. I punched in the numbers and the phone unlocked, revealing the entire text message from Aaron. I felt a cold, hard pit forming in my stomach as I read it. Aaron, 9:47 p.m. I can't stop thinking about last week at the hotel. Aaron, 9:47 p.m. The way you looked at me. Aaron, 9:48 p.m. We need to be more careful, though. Sarah almost saw your text yesterday. Aaron, 9:48 p.m. But God, I want you again. I didn't believe it at first. I told myself it was a misunderstanding. I looked at the message history between the two of them and found more and more and more. It went back for months. I felt my insides lurch and I wanted to vomit. Emily's text messages were just as damning as Aaron's. Emily, last Thursday. Missing your hands on me. Aaron, last Thursday. Tonight, Paul's working late at the office. Emily, last Thursday. Perfect. The usual place at 7? I heard Emily coming down the stairs and quickly turned off her phone, setting it back down on the coffee table where she had left it. "The kids are asleep," she says, entering the room. "Lucas wanted an extra story tonight. That kid could broker a peace treaty." I smiled at her as she sat down in her favorite chair. She looked the same as she had 10 minutes earlier, but now she seemed different. Alien. Somehow. "You all right?" she asks, cocking her head to the side. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Yeah," I reply. "Just exhausted. Busy day at the office." She nodded, looking at me with concern. "Why don't you go upstairs and get some sleep? I'll answer a few emails and come to bed in a bit." I got up. "Yeah, okay." I paused for a second at the bottom of the stairs. "Hey, Em, I love you." She smiled at me, the same smile I'd seen for the past 8 years. "Love you too, babe." I went upstairs, not allowing myself to think about it too much. I sat down on the bed, listening to her moving around below. She was on her phone, texting. The tip-tap of her fingers on the screen could be heard from where I sat. It was probably him. I should have gone down there and confronted her. I should have called Aaron, yelled at him. I should have thrown things around, broken things. But instead, I undressed and got into my pajamas, and then got under the covers. I thought about all the times Emily and Aaron had been in the same room. At dinner parties, at get-togethers, how many glances, how many touches had passed between them without me noticing? Or maybe I had noticed, but I didn't realize what I was seeing. I thought back and tried to remember if there ever was a moment when I suspected something, but I couldn't remember. When Emily came to bed a few minutes later, she kissed me on the cheek before she laid down next to me, probably assuming I was asleep. I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake. I was thinking about what to do next. I had to find out more. I couldn't confront her until I knew for sure that she was cheating on me. And when I did confront her, I'd have to be prepared. I had to protect the kids. I had to protect our assets. I had to know exactly what I was dealing with. The clock turned 11:23 p.m. I could see Greg's porch light still on through the window. He was probably still awake, but I didn't feel like talking to him. I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I felt alone. I felt betrayed. I felt angry. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about Emily and Aaron. I couldn't stop thinking about how they had betrayed me. I couldn't stop thinking about how my life was about to change forever. The night was long and restless. I tossed and turned, trying to find a comfortable position, but sleep eluded me. All the while, Emily's soft, steady breathing beside me served as a constant reminder of the turmoil in my heart. As the first light of dawn crept into the room, casting its gentle glow on the ceiling, I finally, reluctantly, accepted that I wasn't going to get any rest. I stayed in bed, pretending to be asleep, until it was time to get up. The next morning I woke up to the sight of my wife sleeping next to me, just like always. She looked exactly the same, as if nothing had changed. But of course everything was different now. At least I felt that way. She opened her eyes after a few minutes and saw me looking at her. "Good morning," she said. "Morning," I say, kissing her on the forehead, keeping up appearances. For the next hour, everything went as it always did. Making coffee, the kids coming downstairs, and getting ready for school. The whole time I was watching Emily, trying to see if I noticed anything different about her. She was on her phone constantly, but she always was. I was trying to see if she was hiding the screen from me, or if she was texting someone who she shouldn't be. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after school?" Emma asks, milk running down her chin. "We'll see, Princess. You have a spelling test, remember?" She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I might be late tonight. Big presentation with Paul's team." "Yeah, sure. I'll take care of the kids. I'm getting better at lying. So is she." I get back home from dropping the kids off at school and prepare to begin my day of work. Not for my real job, but for my new one. The one where I'm spying on my wife and best friend to try and catch them in the act. I head to my office and pull up the monitoring software, which I had installed on Emily's phone without her knowledge. That had been surprisingly easy to do. I'd just needed to wait for a few opportunities here and there. Once while she was in the shower, another time when she was asleep and her phone was unlocked, and once more when she was in the other room and had forgotten her phone on the coffee table. She thought it had undergone a software update, and I hadn't mentioned anything. Now I had full access to her texts, her location history, and even her microphone and camera, if I wanted them. I was very careful not to alert her to what I was doing, though. She had just sent a message to Aaron, and I read it with gritted teeth. "Emily, I miss you already. Last night was amazing. Aaron, can't wait to do it again. Greg's place is perfect for it." My blood was boiling as I realized they were using Greg's house next door as a meeting place. He was out of town a lot, and I guess they had been using that to their advantage. No wonder they had been so eager to become friends with him. I opened up another screen to see Emily's location history. There were several interesting points where she had gone to the Continental Hotel downtown and to Greg's house several times. Once, she had even stopped in at a McDonald's for a few hours during the time she was supposed to be at work. My phone buzzed with a notification, a text from Sarah, Aaron's wife. "Want to get a coffee? Need to chat." My heart skipped a beat. Did she know? Had she found out about my own deceptions? Yeah, usual spot. 30 minutes? Thanks, Jack. I gather more evidence, making sure to keep a record of everything. Screenshots, timestamps, hotel credit card statements showing charges at the same time. I save it all to an encrypted folder. This is the only way I can think of to keep my sanity, to turn this into a clinical endeavor. When I get to the coffee shop, Sarah is already there, sitting at a table with a hot beverage in her hands. "Thanks for coming," she says as I take a seat. "Yeah, you all right?" She looked into her coffee, thinking, "I don't know. Aaron's been acting differently lately. Distant. I found something weird on his credit card statement." "What kind of weird?" "Hotel expenses, all during the day." She pauses, her voice shaking. "I was hoping you might have some idea. You're his closest friend." I could tell her everything right now, I thought. I could show her the evidence on my phone. Instead, I just said, "Have you spoken to him about it?" "He calls them business lunches, but..." She trails off. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid." "You're not being paranoid, Sarah." The words escape a little too harshly. She looked at me, searching my face. "What is it? What's wrong, Jack?" Just then I got a ping on my phone. Emily's phone was at Greg's house, not at the office where she was supposed to be. I gotta go, I say, getting up. But hey, Sarah, write this shit down, okay? Times, dates, receipts. If you think something's off, it probably is. She looks at me and nods. You're doing that already, aren't you? I'll see you again. I swear. I sat in my car staring at the small dot on the GPS map on my phone. It was moving. Emily was on her way to see Greg. I was so angry I nearly lost it right there and then. My first impulse was to drive to Greg's house and catch them in the act, but that would have ruined everything. I needed to be patient. I needed to stick with the plan. My phone rang. It was Paul. Hey, Jack, Emily mentioned you're working on the Johnson account? I'll need those figures by the end of the day. I knew it. Another lie. There was no presentation today. Hey, man, I think you got the wrong guy. I'm not on her account. Oh, she said, well, okay, I'll see what I can do. I drive home thinking about all the steps I'm going to take next. The proof is there, but I need more of it. More emails, more text messages, more hotel camera footage, and I need to know exactly who was in on this, who was helping who. I go into my office and check the cameras. Emily is still at Greg's place. No more messages from her. She's busy. I feel nauseous at the thought. I receive a message from Aaron. Hey man, long time no see. How about grabbing a drink tonight? I chuckle to myself. What a fucking hypocrite, I write back. Sorry man, I can't. The kids have soccer practice. That will buy me some more time. It's not true, of course, but soon enough the lies will be over. At least for me. No more lies, no more acting. I create a folder on my computer and save all the evidence I've collected so far. I create separate folders for each person involved. You can never be too thorough with this kind of stuff. It feels good to organize it all, to have it all in one place. It's therapeutic in a way. I still have a few hours before Emily comes home. More lies, more pretending. But that's fine. I'm getting used to it. I have some more preparations to do before I can confront her. I need to buy some more surveillance cameras for inside the house. I need to order the transcripts from our phone calls, and I need to talk to our lawyer. There's a lot more to do. I sip my coffee, contemplating my next move. This is going to take a while, but my patience will pay off in the end. And when it's all over, I'll finally have some peace of mind, knowing that I did everything I could to protect my family. But until then, the game goes on. I will let them stew in their own lies for a little while longer. Until tomorrow. I've become better at pretending, at mimicking Emily's tactics and matching her lie for lie. Today I was making Emma's lunch for school as she sat on a stool nearby. Daddy, can you make the sandwich a heart again? Emma asks, her legs dangling below her. Sure thing, princess. I slice the bread, glancing over at Emily, who is texting away at the counter. I have that lunch meeting with the marketing team today, Emily says, still staring at her phone, so I might be a little late. With Paul? I ask, keeping my voice light as I spread the peanut butter. She hesitated for a brief second. Among other things, I have a big presentation. I nodded and put the sandwich in Emma's lunchbox. I didn't believe her, but I didn't say anything. Lucas entered the kitchen, dragging his dinosaur blanket behind him. Mommy, I don't feel well. Emily put her hand on his forehead. It always pained me to see how gentle she was with him. You're not warm, honey. You must be hungry. How about some toast? I keep an eye on them and record every moment. A few minutes later, I get a notification on my phone. Paul has sent a message to Emily. Let's meet in conference room B at 11 and wear that red dress. The toaster dings, making me jump. Everything all right, babe? Emily asks, spreading butter on Lucas's toast. You seem a little on edge. Yeah, I'm fine. Just got a lot on my mind with work, I say. I was actually thinking I'd head in early. Oh, and I brought those files you wanted me to print for the Johnson account. She looks confused for a moment, then calms down. Oh, right, thank you. I kiss the kids goodbye, kiss Emily goodbye. I told her the truth about the files. There are no files, but there is a USB stick with some very interesting content on it. Well, at least if you are Emily. I managed to convince the night manager at the Continental Hotel to give me some of the security footage from the night Emily spent there with her lover. I told him I was her husband and that I wanted to confront my wife's infidelity with evidence. He was very understanding. In the car, I take out my phone and open the email draft that I wrote to Emily's boss yesterday. It's anonymous and warns about inappropriate relationships between senior and junior staff. I attach a few of the pictures from the hotel and press send. My phone rings. It's Sarah. Jack, I followed your advice. about keeping a record. And? You were right. Aaron's been... Oh God, I think I'm gonna puke. I pulled up to my office and parked the car. Let's meet for lunch. 12:30. Morton's. I have something to show you. The morning was slow. I kept checking the tracking app. Emily was at work, but I could see she was moving around a lot. Conference room B, Paul's office, the executive bathroom. At 11:47, I received an email from HR. They confirmed that they had received my complaint, and they said they would investigate the matter right away. Then my phone rang again. It was Emily. Hey, I say, picking up the phone. Everyone's being asked to sit in on some meeting. They're investigating Paul for ethics violations. Did you talk to him today? No, I didn't speak with him. Why? I don't know. I'll be back late. Okay, I'll watch the kids. I followed the call by opening my laptop and loading up the feed from our house, where a nanny cam in our living room showed all of our family photos on the walls. 8 years of memories that I now had to wonder about. Were they always tainted by infidelity? Was she texting Aaron when I went to the bathroom during our anniversary dinner? Was she thinking of Paul while we were on vacation with the kids? When I got to Morton's, Sarah was already there, sitting at the table and looking like she had just come from work. All right, I say, sitting down and joining in. Are you sure you want to see? She puts her glass down. Tell me everything. I take out my laptop. Fine, but I have to warn you, it's not pretty. I show her the recording I found. Aaron and Emily entering the hotel on several occasions, never at the same time, but always within minutes of each other. And one more thing, I continue. Greg's been helping them. He lets them use his house when his wife's gone. Then we need to destroy them all, Sarah said. I could see the same cold determination in her eyes that I felt in my heart. We talked more about it over lunch, sharing our stories, and slowly began piecing together a timeline of what had happened over the past few months. After lunch, I went back to work. I saw emails being sent out to everyone in the office about Paul being suspended. I called Emily, but she didn't answer. I picked up the kids from school. Is Mommy joining us for dinner? Emma asks as I prepare the meal. Sorry, honey, she's working late, but how about breakfast for dinner? Their cheers almost drown out the sound of my phone buzzing. Another update from HR. They're expanding the investigation to include all senior management communications. Emily finally comes home at 9:30 after the kids are in bed. What happened at work today? I ask, looking up from my laptop where I'm pretending to write emails. I can't say. Legal stuff. She slumps onto the couch. I nodded. You want a drink? Fuck yes. I pour her a glass of wine. Tomorrow she will file for divorce, listing Emily as the reason. There will be an HR investigation and Paul will be found out. Everything is falling into place. Jack? Emily whispers. Can you hold me? I sit down next to her and put my arm around her. She smells like perfume and sweat and terror. I wonder if she can feel my pulse quickening, if she knows that everything is about to change. Hey, I whisper. I'm with you no matter what. She snuggles up closer to me, thinking I am strong and confident, not realizing I am seething with anger. The light on Greg's porch turns on and off, a signal meant for the wrong man. I hold my wife and wait for the following day, when the first domino will fall and everything will begin to come apart. Her wine-trembling wineglass is only the beginning. And so the night turns into day, which turns into afternoon and evening, as I wait at work, waiting for the right moment, gathering my evidence. I make phone calls, print out emails, and by the time the evening arrives, it is all ready. I leave her wineglass on the coffee table when I go to work, and come home later that day as the sun is setting. I didn't actually drink any of the wine, it was just for show. After all, I needed to drive to Aaron's place to confront him. I arrived at 7:15 p.m. Sarah wasn't there yet. That was intentional. I rang the doorbell. Hey man, come on in, beer? Not tonight, I tell him, stepping into the living room where we usually watch games together. You all right? You look different, Aaron asks, plopping down into his armchair and eyeing me with what seems like genuine worry. I stay standing, a hand on the briefcase. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? The question hits him like a punch. A range of emotions washes over his face. Surprise, dread, consideration. And finally, he looks confused. What are you talking about? Jack, that's crazy. Shut up. I'm surprised by how forceful I sound. I have the hotel footage, the text messages, everything. He looked at me, his head in his hands. Listen, I can explain. Explain what? I take out my phone and read the text aloud. Miss you already. Last night was amazing. Sent yesterday. From Greg's place. Should I continue? Another car pulled into the driveway. Who's... Sarah needs to listen too, right? His face went pale, and a moment later the door opened. My wife came in. Hi, sweetie, she says, her tone reserved. Jack wanted me to come and sit with you. Aaron stood up, his face a mask of panic. Sarah, whatever he's told you... He hasn't said anything to me yet, she says, taking a seat on the couch and straightening her skirt. But I think it's time we all know. I opened my briefcase and took out several documents. They were hotel receipts, telephone records, screenshots, and security camera footage. 8 months, I reply as Aaron scans each item. That I could track at least. I think it's been going on longer. Sarah held up a picture of Aaron and Emily entering the Continental Hotel, time-stamped 17 minutes apart. The red dress, she whispers. I got you that tie you're wearing for our anniversary. Aaron was running his hands through his hair, looking frantic. This isn't... it's not what you think. Then what is it? I ask, leaning in, trying to get him to look me in the eye. Explain what part of you fucking my wife I'm not getting. The harsh language made Sarah wince, but Aaron just fell back into his chair. I didn't want to, he begins. But you did for 8 months, Sarah interrupts, flipping open her portfolio. That takes effort, planning, like going to Greg's when you said you were working late. Aaron looked up, shocked. How did you... Hey, Greg's wife does yoga with my sister, I say, cutting him off. She told her about her schedule, about when no one would be home last week. Sarah got to her feet and picked up a sheaf of papers. I'll get straight to the point. Here is the divorce petition. I have named Emily as correspondent. Aaron, she says as he tries to get closer to her. Sarah, please. Stay back, she says, her voice quivering, hands not. She puts the papers on the coffee table. My lawyer will reach out to yours tomorrow. I watch my best friend fall apart, her mask finally breaking entirely. Jack, he looks at me, pleading. We've been friends for 20 years. You can't... Friends? I laugh. It doesn't sound like me. Friends don't ruin each other's marriages. Friends don't play with their friends' kids while they sleep with their friend's wife. On her way out, she stopped for a moment and said, The hotel charges on our joint credit card. Those will make nice exhibits in court, as will the texts you forgot to delete from our shared iPad. His face turned white. I thought so, and Jack was able to confirm it for me. She looks at me. I'll see you tomorrow? For the meeting with HR? I nodded. 10 a.m. Emily doesn't know you're coming, by the way. Aaron's head went back and forth between the two of us. What meeting? What are you doing? I'm gathering proof of her misdeeds at work, I reply. Infidelity is frowned upon by many companies, particularly when it involves multiple C-level employees. You'll get her fired. Like you got me fired? I snap, finally losing my cool. Like you ruined our friendship? Our family? She got up from the couch and looked at me. I'll be in the car, she said, and went out the door. I was left alone with Aaron. I loved her, he says softly. I still love her. No, I reply, putting the file back in the briefcase. You loved yourself, the thrill, the game. If you loved her, you wouldn't have let her jeopardize everything. Her marriage, her job, her name. What are you going to do? I opened the door and turned to face him one last time. And now you get to watch everything burn, just like I did when I found those messages. The only difference is that I'm the one holding the matches this time. I exit the house and go over to Sarah's car. She's crying. You sure you're okay to drive? She nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. Tomorrow's going to be tough, I tell her. Emily's not going to like this. Good, Sarah replies. I'm sick of being quiet. I watched her drive off and checked my phone. My wife's location showed she was still at work, probably with Paul, but that didn't matter anymore. Tomorrow the truth would come out. For tonight, I would let Aaron stew in his own juices and think about what he had done, just like I had every night since I found out the truth. The streetlights came on as I drove home, and the familiar roads now seemed foreign to me, as if they led to a different place entirely. I looked in the rearview mirror a few times, seeing Aaron's house growing more distant and my memories of it fading. A big part of my life was over, and it was a part I hadn't expected to lose. When I got home, I sat in the driveway in the darkness, the engine off, watching the shadows from my headlights disappear from the garage door. Emma and Jack would be asleep inside, and Emily would have some excuse for why she was working late again. I let the silence and the darkness wash over me for a while before finally going inside. I had work to do. On the way home from Aaron's place, I go over the plan in my head. I get a couple of notifications on my phone with more people RSVPing for Saturday. There's going to be a big turnout. I smile at the thought. It was so easy to convince them all to come to the party, and they had no idea it was their own annual tradition being used against them. The summer block party, I had called it. A community celebration. When I got home, I went over the presentation I was going to show everyone. It started out with some innocent slides, showing pictures of us all at various get-togethers and parties. "Daddy," Emma's voice cuts through my focus. "What are you doing? It's a surprise for the party, sweetie. Why are you out of bed?" "I had a nightmare." She holds her unicorn closer. "Will you look under my bed?" I went up with her and managed to get her tucked in after checking for monsters everywhere. And as I did so, I heard Emily talking downstairs, saying she was on a work call again. She just kept lying to them, and it only made me more determined to go through with this. Once I was back in my office, I continued preparing the presentation. There were lots of pictures of Greg and his wife, and I made sure to leave them up on the screen for a few extra seconds, just to drive home the point when I showed what came next. My phone buzzed, and I saw it was a text from Sarah. "Hey, you all set for Saturday?" "Just about. You still in?" "Yeah, I'll be there, and I've got those files for you." I added another slide for this one, an image of the exterior of the Continental Hotel. It looked innocent at first glance, but there was a timestamp in the corner and several people in the background. My fiancé came into the room, wearing a robe. "You coming to bed?" "In a little bit, honey. Just one more thing to take care of." She hesitated. "The HR investigation," she said. "Paul's lawyers are involved." "I'm sure it'll work out," I tell her, closing my laptop. The truth always comes out. I watched her shadow disappear and waited until she was gone before turning the presentation back on. The next day, I made a few phone calls to make sure everything was ready for the party. I confirmed with the company who was delivering the projection screen and with the catering company. "Looks like it's going to be nice on Saturday," Greg hollers from next door as I'm doing my rounds. "You want any help with prep?" "Nah, I'm good, buddy." But the feeling is mutual. I add another picture to my presentation, this one from his surveillance cameras. The backyard is full of guests by Saturday afternoon. The tents are up, the tables and chairs are organized, the food is on display, and the projector is standing in place, ready to go. I spot Emily talking to some of the guests. She looks lovely in her cream-colored sundress. I wonder if she noticed anything strange about Sarah, like how she always tried to keep herself between Emily and Aaron. "All right, time for the presentation," I say, clinking my glass with a spoon. "Come take a seat." The audience sits down with their glasses of wine, and the children place themselves on the blankets in front of the scene. Emily sits in the front row. She thinks this is a feast about us. "Before we begin," I say, standing next to the screen, "I just want to thank you all for being here. Community is so important, isn't it? The memories we share, the trust we have in one another, the friendships we make." Everyone nods, and Greg's wife wipes a tear from her eye. If only she knew. The first slides are exactly the ones I was expecting. 4th of July parades, Christmas decorating contests, kids growing up. I go through them all, narrating as I go. "You've been a part of this," I say, advancing. "Of happiness, of a party, of confession." But then the evidence started to be displayed on the screen, and soon people were gasping in horror as they saw hotel receipts, text messages, and more. "What the fuck?" Emily asks, standing up and dropping her wine glass. "Jack, don't—" "Nice hotel," I say, a new picture showing up. "I hear the Continental has great security cameras." "Aaron?" The crowd reacted with a collective gasp. Sarah sat quietly, her head held high. "And Greg," I press on, switching to the next slide, "your backyard security system sees all, including what goes on in your guest room while your wife's at yoga." My wife was looking at me now, her face pale. "What is he talking about?" The last pictures came up on the screen, revealing everything to everyone we knew. Emily stood there, stunned, as everyone began to talk. "All right, I think we've had enough of this town hall meeting for one night," I say, turning off the projector. "It stings, doesn't it? Almost as much as deceit." People start to panic. Some leave, others stay to talk about it. Kids look confused as their parents try to drag them away. Emily just stands there, looking at me with a horrified and angry expression. "How dare you?" she says as I walk by. "How fucking dare you? Ask me again when the divorce papers get here Monday morning." I entered the house and shut the door behind me. Emily was standing up now, people were leaving, and there was a heated argument happening on the sidewalk. Greg and his wife, I noticed, were having a rather intense discussion. Others were talking to Emily, while some were keeping their distance, as if she were contagious. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Sarah. "Good job. See you in court on Monday." I heard Emma asking someone why everyone was leaving so early. The innocent tone in her voice made me feel a little bit bad about what I had done, but it was too late to change anything now. The damage was done. I knew that all of this would be talked about for weeks, possibly even months to come. The truth about Emily and Greg would be known now, and it would have repercussions for everyone involved. As I watched the neighborhood unravel from my window, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. It was as if I had finally exposed the hidden rot that lay beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect community. But at the same time, I knew that I had also opened up a can of worms that would be next to impossible to close, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to deal with the aftermath. The rest of the evening went by in a blur. I stayed up late, watching as car after car left the neighborhood. It was as if everyone was trying to escape the chaos that had erupted. I wondered how long it would take for things to go back to normal, or if they ever would. The next morning, I woke up feeling groggy and unrested. I had tossed and turned all night, thinking about everything that had happened. As I stepped into the shower, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right decision by showing the video. The block party was a huge success. The next day there were wine glasses left on neighbors' lawns, as if people had dropped them and run away. My backyard had the movie screen still set up, but nobody came over to watch anything. Emma looked out the window as I made breakfast, and asked me why nobody was outside. "Mommy needs to be alone sometimes, honey," I try to explain, turning over a pancake. "Do you want them in hearts?" "Yeah." She hops up onto her stool, unfazed by the fact that Emily is missing from breakfast. Our son came into the room holding his dinosaur blanket. "Where's Mommy?" I didn't know how to answer that. Emily hadn't come home last night. Her phone was at a hotel on the other side of town, and she was there by herself. "Mommy just needed a little time to herself," I reply, placing the plates down for them. "And she loves you both." My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Neighborhood group chat is blowing up," she says when I pick up. "Karen is calling a special HOA meeting." Is it Greg's wife? She's asking for them to be kicked off the board. Emily and Greg. The soundtrack of a children's cartoon played in the background as we discussed the destruction of our society, and it felt all too appropriate. Bing! A message appeared on my phone. It was from my lawyer, reminding me of our meeting that afternoon. I would be receiving the preliminary divorce papers at that time. After that, I got the kids ready and drove them to school, where they were dropped off. I got a few strange looks from other parents who were steering clear of Emily's usual spot in the drop-off lane. When I arrived at work, I could feel the difference right away. People were staring at me and whispering when I walked into the office. Paul wasn't there, and his nameplate had been taken down. "Jack?" my assistant asks. "HR wants to see you at 11. The meeting with HR is short. They're starting an investigation and trying to determine the scope of the inappropriate relationships at work and whether Paul had covered up the affair. "We're going to need statements," the HR lady says, handing us forms. "Anything you manage to write down will be useful." When I got back to my desk, I saw I had a ton of emails. Some of my neighbors were expressing their support, and others were distancing themselves. Apparently, Greg's wife had left him and taken the kids to live with her sister. Emily called my cell phone, and I let it go to voicemail. "Mr. Thompson?" A young intern approaches. Your wife is in the lobby." I find Emily by the security desk. She's wearing the same sundress as yesterday, and her makeup is running. "Why would you do this?" she says. "In front of all these people, our friends, our neighbors." "Let's go outside." We stand in the courtyard. "You ruined my life," she says. "My life, my job. You ruined our marriage," I respond. "I just told the truth." "The truth?" she chuckles. "You told everyone in our town?" "Like you told everyone at the Continental? Or Greg's house?" She winced at the mention of the kids. "Will understand someday that their mom made some decisions. Decisions have repercussions. I want to see them. Speak to my lawyer. 2:00. I turned to leave, but she stopped me. "I did love you, Jack. Maybe not enough, but I did." "No, I reply, my back turned to her. You loved the life we had. What it looked like to the outside world. That's different. My phone buzzed with a text message from the school. Emma had asked for me and was upset. I told my lawyer we'd have to talk another day and went to pick up Emma from school. The counselor's office was where I found her. Tommy said his mom says that you and Mommy are splitting up, she says once everyone else is gone. Like his parents. I knelt down in front of her chair. Grown-ups sometimes make decisions that hurt other grown-ups, but we still love you and Lucas. Are we going to have to leave? No, my little princess. You're going to keep your room, your toys, and your rainbow walls. Her lip quivered. Promise? I promise. Things will change, but I'll always love you. That night, after the kids were in bed, I looked through the divorce papers that my lawyer had sent over, along with a stack of recommendations regarding custody. Then Sarah called me. Yeah, Aaron's leaving tomorrow, she says. He wanted to know about Emily. Good riddance. That neighborhood watch meeting was fun. Karen's already reassigned Emily's responsibilities. I looked out at the street, seeing the porch lights of the neighboring houses, and realized that all of our neighbors had probably heard the whole thing. How are the kids? Sarah asks. They're okay. Emma's scared about her room. Lucas wants Emily. They'll be all right. Kids bounce back quickly. I saw a car pull onto the street and watched as Emily got out. I need to go. She's back. Be brave, Sarah says. We're doing the right thing. A few minutes later, I heard Emily's key in the lock, followed by the sound of her walking up the stairs. Her footsteps were more tentative than usual. She didn't come to my office immediately. Instead, she stopped by the kids' rooms and checked on them first. Then she came to my office. I'm going to be at my sister's for a bit, she says. I'll have my lawyer reach out to yours to figure out visitation. I nodded, afraid to speak, afraid to say the wrong thing again. She began to walk away, then paused. Did any of it mean anything? Was it all a lie? Some of it was, just not enough. She left, and I sat in the house quietly thinking about everything that had happened. I knew the upcoming days would be difficult ones, but at least now I didn't have the burden of those secrets weighing down on me. I would figure out what to do about Greg, and about my marriage, and my children. But for now, I sat back down in the chair and let out a deep breath, watching my wife drive away with her bags packed, heading for her mother's place. I didn't even realize I had fallen asleep in the chair until I woke up in the early hours of the morning. The day of the meeting arrives, and I prepare to leave for my lawyer's office. Emma and Lucas are excited about going to school with Sarah. I watch them from the window as they run to Sarah's car, their backpacks bouncing on their backs. I didn't want them to see their mother at the law office, so we had decided that Sarah would take them to school today. I receive a text message from Emily's lawyer, confirming our appointment at 9 a.m. I take a deep breath and look at myself in the mirror. I see a man who's been through hell, but also a man who's ready to face the truth. On my way to the office, I think about the conversations I've had with Emily over the past few weeks. I try to make sense of everything she's said and done, but it's hard to separate the lies from the truth. When I arrive at the law office, I take the elevator to the 10th floor. I'm carrying a briefcase filled with all the evidence I've collected over the past few months. It feels heavy in my hand, but I know it's necessary. My lawyer is waiting for me in a conference room. They're on their way up, he says. Are you ready? I'm ready. Good. Let me handle most of the conversation. Keep your cool no matter what she says. I nodded and got my things in order on the table. The door opened and Emily stepped inside, followed by her lawyer. Jack, she says, sitting down across from me. Emily, David cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The next hour was a whirlwind of discussions about custody arrangements, division of assets, and spousal support. On the adultery front, Emily's lawyer says, my client is prepared to confess to an affair, provided that affairs, I say, plural. Jack, please. More accurately, David cuts in, pulling a folder from our pile. Aaron Mitchell and Paul Richards, as well as Gregory Anderson, who helped cover it up. The names hit her like a punch to the gut. Her lawyer began to page through the copies we had made, her face growing more and more concerned. Under these conditions, David resumes, we're asking for primary custody with reasonable visitation rights for Mrs. Thompson. Emily chimes in, I want joint custody, her voice faltering. They are my children, too. I looked her in the eyes. Like they were your kids when you were meeting Aaron at the Continental? Or when you were lying to them about working late? Mr. Thompson, her lawyer pipes up. Please try to keep this civil. Civil? I chuckle. You mean like Emily was with Paul at the office? How's that HR investigation going? Emily had already turned pale. They suspended me yesterday. A silence followed. Okay, says David. Here's what we're thinking. He passes over a stack of papers. Jack will have primary physical custody. Emily is to have every other weekend, plus every Wednesday for dinner, rotating holidays as defined on page 4. Emily read through the terms, her eyes welling up with tears. I didn't want to hurt them, she says. But you did, I reply calmly. And actions have consequences, Emily. This is one of them. Her lawyer whispered something to her, and she nodded. I'll let you have custody, she says, but I want us to sell the house. I can't live here anymore. Okay, let's do it after the divorce. The rest of the meeting was quick and to the point, and I could soon leave. As I left the room, Emily stopped me. Jack, she said, do you think they'll forgive us? I looked her in the eye and said, they'll understand one day that we did the right thing, but if they'll forgive us, I don't know. I took the elevator down to the bottom floor, exhaled deeply, and checked my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Sarah. I didn't bother calling her back. It had started to rain outside. I waited under the roof of the building's entrance and looked at Emily as she walked to her car. She sat in there for a while with her head resting on the steering wheel before she started the car and drove away. I called Sarah back. Whatever was waiting for me back home, I would face it. Hey, Sarah picks up. How'd it go? It's over. I get primary custody. We sell the house. How are the kids? Emma made you a picture at school. Lucas wants to know what he's eating tonight. I smiled and headed to my car. Tell them I'm bringing pizza. And Sarah, thank you for everything. We'll be okay. Together. On the drive home, I'm thinking about how to deal with tomorrow and the day after that. Getting the kids ready for school, making them lunches, taking them to soccer practice. It's going to be a new routine, but I know I'll get used to it. I have to. When the weekend comes, I have the kids with me. The divorce papers are signed and it's official. The rain continues to pour down as if to add to my misery, tapping against the windows of my soon-to-be former home. It rains all weekend, which is fine since I have a lot to do around the house. There's a lot more than just these items to sort through after all. I have to dismantle an entire life. I start in the bedroom, going through my deceased wife's closet. Dresses, shoes, all of it worth more than my first car. I find the red dress she wore to meet Paul and throw it in the donation box. Sarah comes in, ready to work. Her gloves are on, and she's got her hair tied back in a ponytail. My sister's watching the kids, she says. I've got all day. Thank you for being here. I don't think I could have done this by myself. She looked around the room, seeing the wedding photo and noticing I had already flipped it upside down. Where do you want to start? Closets first, then the dresser. If she wanted it, it goes in a box. If not, donation pile, garbage pile. We work in silence, packing her things. Jack, Sarah says, holding up a blue tie. Is this Aaron's? Throw it away. I fetch a box and place all the bottles inside, not checking what they are since I know I would recognize the smell of each of them. What about the kids' rooms? Sarah asks when we're done with the master bedroom. Leave those as is. I want everything to be familiar for them. I go back downstairs and begin to remove photographs from the frames in the living room. There's one from our last family vacation that I can't help but look at for a second longer than the rest. Emily on the beach, holding our 2 kids, smiling and laughing at something. I wonder if she was texting Aaron that day or planning to meet up with Paul. Save it, Sarah says softly. For the kids, they shouldn't have to forget everything. Okay? I put it to the side and resume the purging. The kitchen contains unexpected triggers. The coffee mug I got her for Christmas, our first year together. The recipe box with her mother's handwriting. The wine glasses we drank from on our anniversaries, each one now imbued with distrust. What will you do with all this space? Sarah asks me, emptying out the shelves and the cabinets. I'll redo it. Paint, get new furniture, have the kids choose what colors they like. That's smart. Make it your house, not ours. The word ours tasted strange on my tongue. I had gotten so used to saying mine again after we split up 8 years ago. My phone rang. It was Emma's school. Hi, Mr. Thompson. Emma's not feeling well. Can you come get her? Yeah, sure, I'll be right there. Sarah waved me toward the door. Go. I'll keep working on this. When I arrived at the school, Emma was in the counselor's office, holding her unicorn backpack. Tommy told me that his mom says we're not allowed to play anymore, she says to me when we're alone. because of what Mom did. The words felt like a punch to the gut. I got down on my knees in front of her. Some people don't get that this isn't your fault, Princess, or mine, or Tommy's. Can we repaint my room purple? Her sudden change of subject makes me smile. Of course, I said. Do you want to help me pick the color? Can we do it today? Can we swing by the hardware store on the way home? When I got home, I saw that Sarah had cleaned up the living room. All of the places where Emily's things had been were now empty. Purple? She asks, looking at the swatches in our hands. Emma picked it out, I say, dropping my daughter's backpack to the floor. You want to help us paint? Please, Aunt Sarah? We end up painting her room purple and have pizza for dinner. A palace fit for a queen, Emma says, purple paint on her nose. A new beginning, I say, watching as she studies our handiwork with a critical eye. After Emma went to bed and Sarah left, I walked into the master bedroom. It was now mostly empty. All of Emily's things moved out. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Emily. The lawyers are ready with the final paperwork. Can we meet on Tuesday? I said yes and hung up. The following day, I would paint over the walls, which were the color Emily had chosen. The house was already beginning to feel like my own again. I went to Lucas's room and watched him as he slept. The pictures of our family were still there on top of the dresser. I decided to keep them there, even though our family was no longer real. Daddy? He asks in the midst of waking up. Is the house going to be different? Some of it, not your room, though. Good. I like my dinosaurs. I ruffle his hair. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. At home, I sit down in my office to plan our next steps. I have to decide what color to paint the walls. I have to get new furniture. I have to get therapy for the kids. I have to make the house our home again. I have to make it feel like a home again. I look out the window. Greg's house is dark. There's a for sale sign on the lawn. My phone vibrates one last time. It's Sarah. How are you doing? She asks. Fine, one room at a time. I look around my office, the only room of the house that is still mine. Tomorrow, I will go into Emily's study and pack up her business accolades, her diplomas. But tonight, I'm allowing myself to enjoy the feeling of having a blank slate and the opportunity to start over. The house is settling in its newfound emptiness. We'll continue painting it tomorrow and cleaning it and making it ours. For now, I'm sitting in my office, thinking about what to do next. Sunlight shone through the window of my office, reflecting off the still untidy stacks of boxes and papers. 3 weeks had passed since my girlfriend had left me, and I had decided it was time to do more than just clean up. I Googled local pottery classes and looked at the results. It was something I had always wanted to try. My phone rang. Hey, just wanted to make sure you're still all good for Saturday. Emma's really looking forward to seeing you at her soccer game. Of course, wouldn't miss it. But I might have a little extra time to kill afterwards if I decide to book something. Oh? She sounds a little intrigued. You remember how I used to draw when I was in college? Yeah, the charcoal sketches. You were really talented. I was looking at some local classes for beginners and found a pottery class. Jack Thompson, are you going through a midlife crisis? She asks playfully, without judgment. Midlife clarity, he answers. I hung up and signed up for the class, then opened my bottom drawer. There it was, my old sketchbook, just as I'd left it. Yesterday, I packed my gym bag. This morning, I went for a swim. A fresh start. A pool where I wouldn't think of Emily. Great stroke, a woman says when I emerge. She's standing at the poolside, long gray hair. Did you used to swim competitively? In high school, forever ago. I'm Helen, coach of the Masters swim team, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I climbed out of the pool. Jack, and I'll think about it. When I got home, I took a shower and felt energized. Lucas was trying to make breakfast. Hey, Daddy, I made you cereal. I looked at the crumpled remains of the Cheerios and smiled. Thank you, buddy. But how about we make some breakfast together? We cooked up some scrambled eggs and toast, and it was nice to have company in the kitchen for a change. Daddy, can we paint again today? Lucas asks, his mouth full of eggs. I was thinking we could try a new activity today. How about we make a birdhouse? Seriously? Yeah, I did. I found my old woodworking tools in the garage. We go to the hardware store together. I go there with Lucas to pick out a good piece of wood for the door. It's fun to pick out the right stuff. The guy at the hardware store gives us some ideas. First time building something with the kid? He asks, checking the dimensions of our wood. Yes, hoping to do a lot more of this. You should come by one of our classes on the weekend. We do some basic lessons in carpentry. I added another potential hobby to my mental list. Thanks, I will. The garage became our workshop. Lucas wore his plastic tool belt and handed me nails as I taught him the basics of carpentry. My phone buzzed, a reminder of the photography meetup I had signed up for. "Hey, it's coming along," Sarah says, walking in from the garage door. "Emma's having a nap at my place. I thought I'd see how you're doing. Do you want to learn some basic woodworking?" She chuckled. "Sure, why not? It beats paying someone else to do it." We spent the rest of the afternoon cutting wood and sanding. Lucas was very helpful, and Sarah had a good eye for measuring. "There's something different about you," Sarah says as we tidy up. "You feel lighter." "I think I am. It feels like I'm reconnecting with parts of myself that I boxed up." Later that evening, I took the kids to Sarah's house for the sleepover and then went to the photography meeting downtown. First time? A man in his 30s reaches out to shake my hand. "I'm David, ex-accountant, amateur photographer. Jack, I don't know." "Perfect." He points to his camera. "Care to join us on our Sunday morning nature hikes?" I nod, thinking of the way the light comes through the trees in the morning, imagining ways to catch it on paper. When I get home, I pull out my sketchbook again. This time, it doesn't seem as daunting. I begin a quick sketch of the birdhouse we made, adding little details that I think Lucas would appreciate. My phone buzzes, and I see Emily has texted me, asking if we can switch a day next week. It doesn't bother me as much as it used to. I respond saying it shouldn't be a problem, then go back to my sketching. I look out my front window and see a sold sign on Greg's house. Everything is changing in the neighborhood, in the city, and in the world. But for the first time, it feels like it's changing for the better. I make a list of things to do on a notepad. Pottery class Saturday. Master's swim team Tuesday. Woodworking class Thursday. Photography walk Sunday. I pencil in the kids' activities, my work schedule, and therapy appointments in between. It doesn't seem like too much. Actually, it seems like just enough. Sarah texts me a little while later saying the kids are asleep, and Emma wants to know if she can paint the birdhouse purple. I text her back saying of course she can. And I add paint to my shopping list. "Tell her that we'll build her the purpliest birdhouse on the block," I say. I put down my phone and continued drawing. It felt good, like I was getting something back that I had lost. It wasn't just my art that I had lost during my marriage, it was myself. Emma's soccer game, pottery class, birdhouses. It was going to be a busy day tomorrow. But it was the first day of my new life, or perhaps it was the first day of my old life. Either way, I was ready for it. I looked down at my sketchbook and then out the window at the stars in the sky. Everything was starting to feel right again. I didn't know what the future held, but I was excited to find out. And with that thought, I drifted off to sleep. The sun was coming in through the kitchen window as I prepared the kids' lunches for school. I had been more careful since the diagnosis, making sure to cut the crusts off of Emma's sandwiches and to put Lucas's cookies in a separate container so they didn't get crumpled by his juice box. I heard Sarah's voice from the living room, helping the kids put on their backpacks. They were laughing, and it made me want to cry tears of happiness. "Daddy!" Emma comes running in with a piece of paper. "I made this in therapy yesterday. Look!" The drawing shows Emma, Lucas, me, and Sarah in front of a purple house filled with purple birdhouses. "I love it, Princess. Should we put it on the fridge?" "Next to mine!" Lucas chimes in, gesturing to his own drawing, a shockingly accurate depiction of the woodshop project we tackled over the weekend. Sarah stood at the door with the car keys in her hand. "Are you guys ready for our Saturday?" The kids cheered and began heading for the door. We had made a habit out of doing things together on the weekends. It was part of the process of trying to become a family. "All right, what do we say?" I ask as we start getting into our cars. "Family circle," Emma exclaims. "Dr. Martinez." We spent the morning at the community center, watching Emma's soccer team, coached by Helen from my swim team, play against the Panthers. Sarah's sister Amy and her kids joined us, along with David from our photography club and Roy from the hardware store, who came to support his granddaughter. "They're okay," Amy says with a smile at halftime, seeing Emma giggle with the other kids. "You know, as long as they're loved and cared for, they'll be okay. And they're given the truth," I say, "in a way they can understand." That's what Dr. Martinez said. Lucas pulls my sleeve. "Can we show everyone the birdhouse when we're done?" "Oh, that's great! I was planning on some friends coming over for lunch in the yard." Sarah looked at me with a raised eyebrow. The famous Thompson grilled cheese back on the menu? That afternoon, my backyard became everything I had wanted. People were talking and having a good time, and the kids were playing and laughing together. Best of all, nobody was gossiping about anyone else. "Jack," Helen says from the patio, "they need somebody to help coach the junior swimmers for the Masters team. You want in?" The suggestion surprised me. I haven't coached since college. Sometimes the best new beginnings are old hobbies. David gets up and shows us pictures from this morning's soccer game. "We look good," I say. "Not just the kids, us too." "Daddy," Emma shouts, skipping up to me with a big smile and grass stains on her knees. "Can we show everyone my art room?" We go room to room, showing them the changes that have been made. Emma's room, now a deep purple. Lucas's room with a dinosaur theme. My old art studio, which has been restored to its original state. "Remember when we could just sit and watch TV after dinner?" Sarah says as the kids show us their forts. "Now we're getting crafts and activities." "Better than secrets and lies," I mutter. She patted me on the arm. "Much better." We ended up having a homemade pizza night that evening in our kitchen, with Roy showing Lucas how to knead the dough and Helen teaching Emma how to spread the sauce evenly. It reminded me of my own family dinners growing up, where everyone had a part to play. "Hey, Mr. Jack," Roy's granddaughter Katie asks, "can I help with the birdhouses next weekend?" "Sure, maybe we can start a kids' woodworking group." The idea takes hold, and we decide to start doing it on a weekly basis, taking turns in each other's garages. One more support structure for our kids. Once the others were gone and the kids were in bed, Sarah helped me clean up. "You're on the right track, you know," she says, putting our dishes in the dishwasher, creating something new after the collapse. "We're on the right track," I say. "I couldn't have done this without you." I look outside at the birdhouses, lit up in the setting sun, and I think of my son, and how I need to be healthy and well for him. Story time! On my way, bud. While putting Lucas to bed, I tell them about my childhood, about my grandfather, about the importance of having a family you can trust. Like our family? Like our family. Different, but still full of love. "Maybe even more," Lucas says, his voice trailing off. As I look at them, I think about what we'll do tomorrow. Sunday photography walk, then pottery class where I'm finally starting to make something that resembles an object. The more connections I make, the more roots I put down, the more I know my kids will have a better life. Sarah comes up behind me. "They're lucky to have you," she says. "Better than the alternative." I step out of the room and close the door partway. "We're building something here," I say. "Something real for a change." The stars are coming out as I look out the window. Tomorrow is a new day. But for tonight we can rest, knowing that everything is out in the open. No more secrets. No more lies. And with that knowledge in mind, we all fell asleep and woke up the next morning, and the next one, and the next one. And just like that, the winter passed by and turned into early spring. My backyard was covered in the morning mist. I sat on the deck, drinking a cup of coffee, and watched the early birds eat from our purple bird houses. It had been 6 months since the neighborhood party, where we all exposed our secrets to one another. Now, nature had its own secrets to tell. A bright red cardinal landed on the bird feeder closest to me. My daughter had named him Mr. Fancy, and said he was the same one who visited us every morning. Maybe she was right. "Hi, Daddy," Lucas calls from the other side of the sliding glass door, wearing his dinosaur pajamas. "Can we have pancakes?" "You bet, pal. You want to help me make them?" He was standing on his stool in the kitchen, making pancakes while I heated up the griddle. "Is Mommy coming to my science night tonight?" he asks, nonchalant. "Of course she is. Everyone's going to love your volcano." She let herself in with the key I had given her, arriving just as we finished breakfast. "Something smells good," she says, taking the coffee mug I hand her. "Daddy made pancakes with me," Lucas chimes in. "Did you save any for Emma?" "She's still in bed," I reply. "She was up late working on a school art project." She smiled, knowingly. "The one with the pottery?" "Dad's kiln," Lucas adds helpfully. "The studio in the basement has become our safe haven, a place where we can let our creativity flow and turn our despair into beauty. Emma just finished a bowl, and it's now cooling on the shelf. It looks good, especially considering she's only 7 years old." My phone rang. It was Helen from the swim team. "Hey, you coming to the meet this afternoon? The kids are excited?" "Yeah, wouldn't miss it, but I'll be late. I have to meet Emily's lawyer." She looked at me a little strangely. "Is there a problem?" she asked. Just making sure everything's in order. Don't worry about it. Emma comes into the kitchen yawning. Is that blueberry syrup I smell? The morning goes on like usual. Breakfast, getting the kids ready for school. Dad, do you feel better now? I was taken aback by the question. Why do you ask, Princess? Because you're happier. You smile more, and you make things instead of working all the time. From the kitchen, I could hear Sarah trying to pretend she wasn't listening. I am happy, I tell Emma, feeling it for the first time. Different happy than before, but good happy. Me too, she says. I remembered that conversation later, when I was signing the divorce papers in my lawyer's office. My lawyer says the house will be sold next week, I tell her. Other than that, we're all squared away. She looked at me and said, Jack, It's all right, I softly interject. We're all right. Outside, we stood in awkward silence for a moment. The kids have an art show next month, I say. They'd love to see you there. I'd like that. She pauses. You're doing a great job with them. Better than I. We're doing just fine now, I say. That's what counts. I watch her go and think that I've come to terms with everything that happened. It isn't the end of our story, just another chapter. My swim team is in the pool practicing laps. Helen is standing next to me with a stopwatch. They believe in you, she says. That's the hard part. Trust is the whole deal, I say, remembering about purple birdhouses and pottery classes. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Science fair. The kids are ready. The volcano is ready to make a huge mess. He'll definitely enjoy that. Funny how things work out, huh? Helen says, looking at our swimmers. How you can get a better life from an awful hand. Is that what happened to you? She doesn't answer, just smiles again and says, let's just say I know a thing or two about change. Later that night, I'm at the kids' science fair, watching Lucas explain his volcano to the judges. Emma is standing next to him, and Sarah is recording everything with her phone. Next to me, Greg's ex-wife is talking to their kids. She looks at me and smiles. She's been through something similar, I realize. She's been through hell, but she's come out on the other end. The volcano erupts, and everyone cheers. Lucas looks so proud of himself, and I feel a warmth in my chest that I haven't felt in a long time. This is what it's all about, I think. This is what life is all about. I get a text from David, one of the guys from my photography class. He's sending me some pictures from our last outing. I open them up and smile. They're beautiful. Nice pics, I reply. That evening, after the science fair was done and the kids had gone to bed, I sat in my pottery studio, molding clay. The stars shone outside the window as I worked on a piece, while Sarah was doing the same. What you making? She says, keeping her eyes on the wheel. I don't know. I think you have to let it be what it wants to be. She nods. And as I sit there with my hands covered in wet clay, I'm struck by the realization that this is what it was all for. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the new friendships, and the new life. It all led to this. A life full of meaning and purpose, love and honesty. A life worth living. Tomorrow, we will have to get up early to drive Emma to her soccer game, and later we will take Lucas to the swimming lessons. But for now, I'm content to just sit here with my wife, making pottery and listening to the gentle...
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted. dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using therein. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.